about some of my relevant comments about your father, Bill Staton. And as I think about Bill, clearly the connection between Bill and I was, of course, you being a lawyer and his daughter living in Seattle. I remember you were working for Graham and Dunn law firm. John T. John was one of my dear friends, and he was a managing partner there. And your dad used to come by and come up to our billiard room in Linwood, Washington, and at Harry P. Hughes, and he used to come out and play pool. And I got to know him down in Las Vegas through Bill Rosenberg and Cornbread Red and Jay Helfert and Richie Florence. And we used to go to he and I used to go to the fights together and go to the various billiard tournaments. And the first thing I remembered in relationship about Bill Staton was that he was always impeccably dressed at all times. He stood out with respect to the masses in the pool world, and he carried himself with a sense of not any arrogance, but a sense of confidence, a sense of a guy who was very confident in himself, and he handled himself that way, and his demeanor was such that you were always seeking his advice. What do you do in this spot here? What do you think about this? And he was extremely knowledgeable.
Come on, let's be honest. Billy was the ultimate con man. Come on, he was smooth, he was charming, he knew every angle. I mean, that's who Weenie Beenie really was. And he was trying to get in your pocket if he could. You know, I told you a story before. You know, we went partners in a blackjack game in Bend, Oregon. That was in 1976. It was Ronnie Allen's big tournament, and we won $12,000 that night, which was a fortune for me. Half of that was my money. The next day, he robbed me for my share playing gin rummy. And that was your dad. But I loved your dad. I loved your dad. And like Harry said, he'd keep you on your toes. You better be real sharp around him because, you know, if he could get the edge on you, he would.
He was going to outthink you. He was going to outthink you at all times, and he was always thinking about making a move on you at some point in time. And we mentioned the incident about when in 1980 we went out to Port Angeles, the big pool tournament, and I rented a salmon fishing boat for all the pool players and took them salmon fishing. And he and I never got on deck because we ended up playing gin rummy, and I think I lost about $3,000 to him.
Yeah.
And
were you there?
No, not on that one.
But I remember he always wanted to play me straight pool, and that was his best game, in one pocket, and he would never want to spot me, and I had to play him even. We always had to pay, and we bet $2,000 a game back in those days, which was real money in those days. But he was always there, capable, and he always wanted to step up and gamble. Even when he came out and visited you out in Seattle, he was always looking to pay for his trip. I remember that. He was really real sharp in that regard.
He'd start pacing if he couldn't be gambling.
Billy was the highest of high rollers. I mean, you couldn't outbet him. He wanted to bet the moon if he could. He was not afraid to empty his pockets and make a big bet if he liked the game. And make no mistake about it, your dad was a real good pool player. I mean, he was one pocket, he was among the best. I mean, he'd like to lead you to believe that everybody should spot him. He was among the best. He could play straight pool. He could even play 9-ball if he had to. He was a real pool player. He was no fake. You know, Fats had this whole image that he put on, and he wasn't really the greatest pool player. But your dad was the opposite. He always acted like he couldn't play, but he really could. That was his best game. He was a great pool player. He won tournaments, you know, with all the top players.